Hi, you're listening to The Happiness Agenda. I'm Steve Zapato, and we talk about all things happy. Well, that's not really true. We talk about how we find our happiness and how you can go about finding that happiness in your life. So today, I got the amazing Doug Sandler, and I mean, he's amazing. He runs a couple different things. He's a speaker, an author, a podcaster. He's a creator of the Nice Guys Finish First book, as well as the Nice Guys on Business podcast. And if you're not reading his book or listening to his podcast, you're making a big mistake. Doug, are you there?
I am here. Welcome, and thank you for having me on your show, Steve.
Sure, this is great. Doug and I met at a C-Suite Network event for C-Suite advisors up in New York City a few months ago. And turns out, Doug, you're like one of the movers and shakers there, right?
I don't know. My mom told me if you're not an overachiever, you're nothing. So I just keep plugging away. I don't want to be what's the expression? I don't want to be a big shot. I want to be a little shot that just keeps shooting.
Yeah. Hey, no pressure, though, from your mom. I could tell that, right?
No, not at all.
Doug's head of the C-Suite Network's radio network. He's actually the director of partnerships for the radio and podcasting, right?
That is exactly right. We've had 28 as of today, as of the recording of this, 28 podcasts have joined the network, and that's great. We're looking for 72 more, so we're on our way there to 100.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing to me. You know, that's like big time, and that's what the C-Suite Network is all about, is helping other people find their big time. So that's one of the reasons that we all network. That's the reason we join organizations and we meet other people, is to help other people grow and become the things that they want to be. Right, Doug?
Exactly. You know, I feel like, what's the expression? It's not what you know, it's who you know, and it's the people that you hang out with. I mean, the majority of the business that I've ever gotten in my life has come from people that are nearest and closest to me. If you know me, you like me, and you trust me, I feel, which is pretty standard for business today. If you know, like, and trust somebody, you're going to gain their business, and they're going to gain yours as well. So that's exactly what this is all about, building relationships.
So you don't want us to get to know you too well, though, Doug, because you want us to like you still, right?
Yeah, that's probably true. Hey, listen, if you happen to listen to my podcast, you'll know that I'm going to keep it as clean as I have to today for you, Steve. But if you head over to mine, every episode carries the explicit rating. We can let it fly every once in a while over there.
Yeah, that's cool. And if you listen to Doug, he's a lot of fun. You can tell on this already that we have a lot of fun. And Doug, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you? You've got a website, you got you got podcasts, obviously, but where do we find all this stuff?
Yeah, the easiest place to get to me is just head over to my website, which is just DougSandler.com. And if you want, you can certainly feel free to put a link in the show notes. For your listeners, Steve, just so you know, I offer a free training program, but they have to click on the link on my website. So the training program is how to build better relationships within your business, and it is exclusively for those that visit or are listening to this podcast today if you go over to my website.
Wow, that's great. I hadn't talked to Doug about a free offer or anything, so that's really nice that he offers that to you today. So if you get a chance, you want to be better at business partnerships, boy, that's the way to go then. Free training, how do you beat that? That's when you talked earlier, that's one of the things that I love to talk about. It used to be about what you knew. And then gradually as we got along, people still do, they say if you're certified, or if you're credentialed, if you carry this certification, you get a job over somebody who may have been doing the job longer and obviously knows the job better. And that's always been a frustration to me in the corporate world. In the real world, which is where Doug and I live, which is entrepreneurship basically, it really is about what you know, but more importantly, who you know. If you get to know the right people and they understand that they can trust you and that they can work with you and that you have great knowledge, then you're going to move up faster than somebody who they can actually see through. So it's not necessarily what certification you carry as much as it's your knowledge, your expertise, and your ability to get to know other people. Right, Doug?
Well, when I went to college, and you're 100% right, Steve, when I went to college back in 1902, it seems like, it really was about, I did spend that time getting my degree, but what I realized was extremely important were the relationships that I built in college and those connections, those original connections. It was not about how well you can interview or the degree that you got. It was just the fact that you had a degree that was important in 1986, literally when I got out of college. And but I don't think I've actually used any of my degree. I used the social skills that I learned in college to really develop my entire business plan and develop my business model, which is pretty much being a nice guy, telling the truth, returning your phone calls are the basic premise of my entire business plan, and that's how I've led it for the last 30 some years.
That's interesting that you say that. That's all part of what you and I probably end up teaching as we teach other stuff, which is part of its customer service. I'm doing a workshop for restaurants coming up the end of March, which is to help them. A lot of restaurants just open up and they're $1 million restaurants, but the rest of us have to work hard to become $1 million restaurant. So as I do these workshops, I call for locations where I might put them on in an area. So I'm here in Sacramento, so I'm looking for a central location. I probably called 10 different hotels who have meeting areas and said, hey, I'm looking at doing this. Well, 8 out of the 10, I got a recording.
Right.
And only one of those people in the last 5 days has called me back. And
Isn't
you're like,
that incredible?
Are you kidding?
It's business that you're knocking on the door. You're saying I want to give you money.
Yeah.
That phone, I never understand that. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I cut you off. Where you wanted to continue?
Yeah.
I was going to say I deliver seminars all over the country, and when I talk to people, I always ask them to raise your hand if you have ever been on the receiving side of a non-returned phone call. And everybody raises their hand. Yes, I did not get a return phone call. And then I ask the follow-up question, how does that make you feel? And we can talk about that too, Steve. How does that make you feel? It makes you feel like you're not important. It makes you feel like you don't even know if that person got the message. It makes you feel insignificant. It kind of takes your ego and starts to bring it down to a really small size.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, everybody put your hand down. Now, raise your hand if you have not returned a phone call that you have gotten. And the same hands go up.
No.
And I say, what? Okay, let's look at what you just told me. You told me that you feel insignificant when your phone call's not returned. You feel like you're not important, and you feel like you don't even know if you're communicating effectively to the people that you're calling. I said, if you're doing that to other people, we're all making people feel really bad. We got to stop that. We've got to return. It's a simple process. Return your freaking phone calls, people, and that is it.
And what's funny about that is if you talk to people who are looking for a job, they return every phone call. But if you talk to people who are in business, they don't.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't
how
get
much sense does that make? So, yeah, that's really true. So it gets back to how do you make people feel? When Doug and I were in New York City, the group that was there, like 100, 120 people, I'm not sure how many Jeffrey ended up saying there were there, but everybody was genuinely interested in talking to everybody else. It was the connections we were trying to make, and it wasn't just, hey, here's my business card, call me. It was genuine. That's the one thing about the C-suite group is let's talk. And that's what I teach networking here. I teach business here in Sacramento. And that's what people don't get here. They don't get that connectivity. It's like, here's my business card. You should call me. And you just drive yourself nuts with that, don't you?
I think part of the problem is people think too deep into what business is all about. They think about a business model and a business plan and operations and ROI and pay-per-clicks and CPM and everything, all of those other buzzwords that, pardon my expression, Steve, do you carry the explicit rating on your show, or you keep it clean?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't know what the F they're talking about. Okay, when they start using all of those buzzwords, I don't know what they're talking about. I can tell you the key to business, if the listening community that you have learns nothing from this show, well, they're going to learn a lot from you, but if they learn nothing from me other than the following information, it is return your phone calls, return your emails, tell the truth, be on time, and develop relationships. Those 5 things have been the premise of not only my entire business model for the last 30 years of me owning my own business, but it is the things that makes any business successful. And why people don't do it is unbelievable to me. But it keeps me employed, so I'm happy.
That's right. Well, and I think I think everybody intends that. They just don't do it. So let's talk about, you say you've been doing this for 35 years, and that's about how long I've been doing it. I started off out of college going to IBM because they said you had to have a degree to get into IBM. And I spent a few years at IBM doing this. And then I took off on my own and been an entrepreneur ever since, owned several businesses, and that type of thing. But tell us your story, would you?
Sure, absolutely, and I'll just give you the peanut-sized edition of it because a lot of it is long and drawn out. But just to give you the short version of it, for the last 30 years, so since probably 30 plus years, since 1984, I have actually been an entertainer in the social world. So I'm a guy that tends to be the guy behind the turntables running as a DJ at events, social events in the DC market, the high-end DC market. And, I hit around my mid to late 40s, and I met with my financial planner, and my financial planner said to me, hey, look at the guy that's closest in competition to you. How old is that guy? And I look at the guys that were doing 100 to 105 gigs a year like I was, and those guys were in their mid-20s, and here I was at 47. So he said, look at the guy that's older than you that's doing the job. Do you want to be there? And I, in my mind, have this one guy, and I won't mention his name because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I kept thinking, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the mid-60s guy. Nothing wrong with being in your mid-60s. I'm 52 now, but when I get to 60, I did not want to be the guy out on the center of the dance floor or in that club spinning the turntables. While that may appear to be a fun life, and it is fun, there are other things that you feel like you can deliver a better message, better content. You can make more of a difference in the world. So he said, just be on the lookout for opportunity. In which case, I happened to be at a conference, saw a guy speak, loved what he was all about. His name is Ryan Estes, and I asked Ryan how he got his start in the speaking business. He shared some information about his speaking coach, which evolved into hiring a book writing coach, wrote a book, developed the platform over the last 5 years, completely reinvented my entire life, and went from a guy that was a club and mobile and social DJ to a guy that is now entertaining on a whole different level, which is in the corporate world, and have been being very humble about loving this next phase of my life, because starting over is not easy, especially at 47. But it's been a very good run over the last 5 years, and I've very much enjoyed all of these new things, like the book, like the podcast, like my blog, like relationships with Jeffrey and C-Suite, all of these great things, and certainly with meeting great folks like you, Steve, and getting on their podcast too.
Boy, he's a good schmoozer, isn't he, folks? That's really nice. So you reinvented yourself, and do you have family?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have my starter wife, and then I have my second wife now. So been married twice. Have two kids. I didn't have to move. Fortunately, I didn't move very far. I moved maybe 30 miles away from my hometown, so I'm not very far from there. And yeah. So I built my business. My family's been extremely supportive in this entire process. My wife, very, very supportive of this process as well. And she's an entrepreneur too, so she kind of understands the need to get on with life and make things happen.
Yeah, and I think it's important as you listen to his story, part of his story. We've all struggled through our lives. Everybody thinks, boy, some people will just have it made and they'll go out and things just happen. In my restaurant stuff, I tell people all the time, there are $1 million restaurants where the people actually don't know how they got successful, but 90% of us have to work at it. So that's true with life too. You're going to find the people out there who absolutely say, hey, life has been perfect for me. Every time I turn around, every time I think I'm going to fall in the poo, I come up smelling like a rose. But for most of us, it's a process, and we keep reinventing and reinventing. And what Doug and I have found is that we want to make a difference in the world. You're listening to this podcast maybe for entertainment purposes, maybe just to find a little more happiness in your day, because we have fun when we talk. But truthfully, most of us who you're going to find on this podcast want to make a difference to the people around us. And that's what Doug decided out of his life. Yeah, it's great to entertain. It's great to have fun. I owned a nightclub and a banquet halls, and yep, you go running around having a great time doing that stuff. But in the long run, you want to make a difference in the world. Right, Doug?
I really feel like that's important, and I think that that's all a part of that happiness factor that you need to seek out. I think that you have to rise to your own level of where you feel like happy is. And for me, I spent 30 years or so in that entertainment world, and I love it, and I still love it. I still gig every weekend. But for me, it was, listen, I've done 3,500 gigs in my life. It's time to see what is that next thing, and how can I make a difference and an impact in the world? And I find, even in the short time that I've created this new business, that I'm starting to really make an impact. Maybe not in the world yet, but in my small microcosm I am, and it will expand out from there. And I love doing what we do with this message.
When you say in my microcosm, but isn't that what it's all about? I mean, we talk about the philosophies of the world, but one drop in the ocean changes the ocean in some way. And that's what you and I do. Like you say, we'd love to be able to say, hey, we're the Tony Robbins of the world and we affect all these millions of people. But truthfully, if we can affect the people around us, who then affect the people around them. So if we can give them a little bit more happiness, a little bit more joy, if we can give them a better mood on any given day, that changes what happens in their world also. And that's what we are, right?
I completely agree with you, and let me step back from my comment for a second and maybe readjust and reword it just slightly. I think it's important that if you have kids, if you affect your kids positively and you teach them something and you show them through example that you're not afraid to reinvent yourself, that it is not you make one decision and you stick to it your entire life. Some people might say that I did a couple things. Some people might say that I quit my marriage. Some people might say that I quit my business to move on to this new business and new life. And I would tell them that if you've made a decision and the decision was not one that you're happy with, figure out what it's going to take to make you happy, because if you're not happy, you're going to make the people around you miserable. And when people around you are miserable, you are affecting them in a negative way. And I've always surrounded myself with positivity. And if I can teach my kids that, if I go no further than just my kids, my small microcosm, then I feel like I've been successful in my life.
Cool. That is cool. You know, what's funny is when you were talking about your kids and how you have affected them in a positive manner. My son's now 30, so, I'm a little bit older than you, but what I always go back to when I tell my stories about how you affect other people, you don't always get along with your kids. My son and I have always had a great relationship, but when they're teenagers, they still rebel against you. And I was listening to in those days a CD, but it was from Cavett Roberts, I think. But the guy made a comment one time on the CD that I owned, which was, if you've got a kid coming up who's going to be 15 or 16 years old and you're going to make him go out in the real world and get a job, he said, don't do it. And my initial thought was, don't make my kid get a job. No, he has to learn about the real world, right? Get out there.
Right.
And then he went on to finish with, instead of making your kid go out and learn all the bad habits that all the people who have those jobs are going to teach him. So, they go out to flip hamburgers at McDonald's and they're going to have the guy out back smoking the joint, or they're going to have the people, trying to slack off and trying to hide in the coolers. If you've ever owned a business, you know what we're talking about. But they said, instead, pay your child to read the book of your choosing, right? And so I heard that, and suddenly it impacted me, and I went, wow, I would love for my kid to do that. But it had to be his idea. So I waited till I picked him up from school one day, and I replayed that. I set it so it would play. And so when I played it for him, he was listening to it, and he said, Dad, would that be great to do or what? And I said, I'm sorry, what were you saying? I missed it all. So we replayed it, and he said, wouldn't it be great if you paid me to read a book rather than get a job? Because how many of the kids want to get a job? And
nobody.
So he ended up becoming, in the next 2 years, the guy who started the Millionaires Club at high school. Future Millionaires Club, it was called. But yeah, how we impact the people around us, our children to start, the people around us to move on from there. And I call my son now the six-figure bartender. Because he's very, very successful. He graduated college and wanted to be a bartender. And I was like, are you nuts? But he's now, 10 years into this, not only making great money, but having a great time and impacting other people as he does it. So yeah, that's true. When you say you go out and you do talks, you do speeches and workshops and seminars, what are some of your topics, Doug?
One of them is called actually Nice Guys Finish First, Better Relationships Equal Better Business. I teach a seminar on branding, how to brand new you, as it's called, and those are primarily the areas that I focus. I also teach people how to build content so that you become a celebrity rock star in your industry, how to sell yourself through social media. There's many different topics that I work on, but the key topic is really better relationships equal better business in my program called Nice Guys Finish First.
That's really cool. I've been working, I'll bet you, 2 years. I keep getting sidetracked. You know how you get sidetracked on jobs?
Never get sidetracked.
I got a couple projects out there, and one is called People Skills, and the other is called QL Method, which is Questioning and Listening Method, which is all about communication, which is what your topic is, right?
Yeah, we one of the short videos, I show a very brief 2-minute video that I think I found out on YouTube about all the negative stuff on networking, and it's just amazing as we watch this video play back. It's actually a scenario where people are in a networking environment, and after the 2-minute video is done, I stop it and say, okay, tell me everything that you see that has gone wrong in this video. And it is amazing how many people actually know the things that are wrong when they watch the video. But the video is kind of like a caricature of people doing improper things or improper practices at networking. And what I try to teach people to do is all of the subtle things, the compliments and the rapport building and the eye contact and the what are you wearing and don't have your mouth stuffed with food when you're chatting with people and pay attention to the business card that they hand you and don't be a card whore, just somebody walking around trying to collect trying to collect cards.
That's the other podcast, Doug. That's the other podcast.
That's right. So there are so many important things that you have to do when you're networking that people just don't realize because you're so caught up in the moment that you really don't have a chance to focus. All you're focused on is, I hate being here. I got to get out of here. I don't like it. And I need to kind of find my area, my comfort zone in here. Well, if you're in an uncomfortable spot while you're networking, you're in the perfect place because you're in a spot that you're not used to. So I always encourage people to lean into the punch a little bit.
When you said that, I go back 12 years now, and I owned a banquet hall, and I had a great manager. I put in a team, and this one lady was a great manager. And so we'd get invited to, go to these different networking events, where there'd be 200 people there, and you're supposed to go and network and introduce yourself. And you don't know this side of me, but I'm an introvert. So she would grab me. We'd go to this, big wine tasting, and I would pull up a chair and sit down at a table. And she would say, come on, we're going to go meet people. I go, no, I'm not going to go meet people.
Not doing that.
Yeah, that's not what I do, and I hate it. So she'd go out and meet all these people, and every once in a while she'd bring one back and sit at the table and introduce me. And I sat like a stone for a year, just hating networking. Now I teach it as living because, as you said, the growth. I had to grow. I had to become very uncomfortable. Even today, going out and networking as we know it to be is really difficult for me because I would much rather sit in the corner and watch people than to go up and introduce myself. And learning about them I love doing, but it takes a little bit to get out of your comfort zone, doesn't it?
Yeah, you really have to do it. You really have to. And if you don't feel like you can, be held accountable to somebody. That's the benefit of hiring a coach or having a mastermind group or somebody that you work with that's close if you don't have the budget to hire a coach. I would say find someone in your life to be held accountable to, and you have to be honest with that person too. So if your goal going to a networking meeting is to build one relate, and don't go in with a goal of I'm going to meet 30 people. It's just not going to happen. The other side of it is you're not going to sell anything in a networking meeting, and don't try to push it. If you have a service that you're selling and it's thousands of dollars, you cannot sell it in one meeting. You might be able to, but why? I mean, if you're in the business for the long run, well, you don't need to close anybody when you're at networking. If you go there with the intent of meeting 1, 2, maybe 3 people as you get there, that is probably a pretty solid goal. And all you need to do is just focus on that goal the entire time. Have some things that you're prepared to talk about. Have some subject starters in your mind. Have the idea that you're not just going to walk around and collect business cards because that really sucks. And then with the other thing, the key thing to do is when you actually get back to your office or your house, follow up with that person. Now, you don't have to do it. I even sit in my car at the end and just send a text message. Just saying, hey, great meeting you. I hope we get a chance to catch up. I'm not like, great to meet you. I hope you like my products and services. I can't wait to set up an appointment to get, it's like, dude, just chill out for a moment. You have an entire lifetime to build this relationship. You don't have to worry about closing them tomorrow.
That plays right into, I just put a post out on LinkedIn, I think probably earlier this week. And it's titled, let's see if I can remember the title, but, don't sell me, invite me type thing.
Yeah.
And what it was is I'd registered a new domain name because I'm doing a lot of business coaching, so I wanted to get a new website up and running. And I put out this, website, and they contacted me because evidently there's something that finds websites and says, hey. And so this guy sent me a thing. Never heard of him, never seen him. Just sent me a thing out of the blue that said, hey, saw where you registered a new website. You ought to buy my whole website design, my this, my that, my this. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? You didn't
Right.
say hello because I even put underneath, this is what you might have tried. First, establish rapport. Hey, congratulations on registering your website. What are you going to be marketing? What are you going to be doing? When can I expect to see it? I think I would love to
Right,
be.
right. Just ask some questions.
Yes.
That's it. Show some interest. When I get an email from somebody that's trying to come on my show, and the first thing they do is they send me their bio and a link and all of this information, I'm like, there is no way this guy's coming on my show. And I'm like, where's the professionalism in just completely puking product?
Yeah.
That for me is something that I just can't stand. When people just product dump or service dump in my world, I'm like, you just came into my house, you left your shoes on, you took your muddy shoes and you run them right through my house. I'm like, take your shoes off, come into my house, sit down, let's have a cup of coffee and talk. Don't BS me with all the other stuff that you want to do. And I'm telling you, you can be a nice guy and you can still be forward and you can still be assertive and aggressive the way that I am and still be considered a nice guy. I mean, I tend to lead my entire life in a no BS way, but I make sure that the people that are bringing BS into my world, I let them know that, because I think it's important that if they're going to come into my world, you better be ready for the stuff I'm going to throw at you.
And that's a really good point. So when you're talking about success, and it doesn't matter what kind of success, and people always go, well, what defines success, Steve? I go, you know what? Success and happiness to me are intertwined. If you're happy, you're probably successful at what you're doing. But even if you're not, quote unquote, financially successful, if you're happy, you're successful enough, because that's what life is all about. But when you're talking to my listeners today, what ideas, what suggestions do you have for people to be happier or to be more successful?
Well, it's interesting you say that, and I would what I would do is I would throw it back to your listener to help define that for themselves, because my wife and I have this conversation all the time. Because of this reinvention in my life, I created a really nice lifestyle for us, working one day a week as an entertainer. And that Saturdays were my day to work. So now I've put 5 other days, 6 other days, 7 other days of work into my life with this reinvention. So we talk about all the time, what is the definition of success? While somebody might say the definition of success is all about how much money you make, there are so many other levels, the barometer to what success means. Does it mean I'm working 2 hours a day? Does it mean that I'm doing exactly what I want? Does it mean that I'm enjoying? I love podcasting, but I got to tell you, podcasting for a year and a half made me $0. And until I really started to examine what I was trying to get out of it and the network that I have built over the last 2 years of having this podcast, in that first year and a half, I was establishing amazing relationships that have finally started paying off. And I wasn't looking at it and saying, I wish I could make more money at this podcast. I was saying that for the year and a half. I'm like, I'm not making any money. I look back at it and say, oh my gosh, I've made so much money off of this because of the relationships that I built. I've met guys like Jeffrey Hazlett. I've met Gary Vaynerchuk was on my show. Ariana Huffington has been on the show. Had some big celebs that have come on my show. The network that I've created as a result of having that show and doing all the other things in this reinvention, that, for me, I consider successful, not because there's dollars associated with it. So I would say to your listeners, to the audience, your community, the ones that are asking the question, what is successful? I've got to help you. We've got to figure this out on an individual basis. What is it that's going to make you happy? Is it working less hours? Is it having a better relationship with your spouse? Is it being able to work in the same business that your spouse is working in? Is it being able to get into your retirement years and not worry that your back isn't working because you're doing a physical job, and maybe it's hanging out at your house and doing stuff from your computer? Is it online? There's so many things that could define it. I would say success to me is whatever it is defined as for you. And if you are the barometer and the measure of your own success, for me, it's doing what I want, with whom I want, whenever I choose to, and being able to take off whatever time that I want to. I don't think I ever want to stop working. I'm a guy that loves working. I love it. My work is my hobby. I think I heard you say that on one of your episodes, is that one of the things that you love doing is your show. And we all love doing this because it gives us, we feel like we're really sharing information and knowledge with the world. And for me, that is a true measure of success.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I love that. So many people do put hey, this is what's going to make me happy. And you and I know that we run across all these wonderful stories where people say, as soon as I get this, I'll be happy. As soon as this happens, I'll be happy. And we all know that we really genuinely deep down know that it's not what we get or what we have that makes us happy. We have to decide. I always share, I'll bet you every other episode I share this, which is, if you aren't going to wake up, if like some people say, oh man, I can't wake up in the morning. I hate mornings. And they just spew all over you. And I go, well, you have to decide the night before if you're going to wake up in a good mood. And they're like, you don't know, blah, blah, blah. I go, okay. So then let me give you the easy answer. Every morning when you wake up, I don't care how you wake up, if you want to be in a good mood, now not everybody wants to be in a good mood, right, Doug?
No, I agree.
Yeah. So if you want to be in a good mood, then what I suggest you do is you wake up in the morning, you go in the bathroom, close the door, turn on the lights, look in the mirror, and say, wow, you're the best looking person in the room. and everybody laughs at that. Everybody smiles at that. If you look at yourself and say that and you're not smiling, there's something wrong with you anyway. You probably need more help than we can give you. But it's also true. So not only did you get a laugh and a smile to start your morning, but you're giving yourself a positive affirmation. You are the best looking person in the room. And so, great way to start your day if you want to wake up in a good mood. If you can't decide the night before, because I know I decide the night before I'm going to wake up in a great mood, no matter what time. I've woken up at 2 in the morning, right? I always wake up at 4:30 or 5, but I've slept till 5 or 5:30 and woke up in a great mood. You get to decide, and Doug is one of those guys. When you meet Doug, you're going to go, wow, this guy is absolutely terrific, because he smiles, he introduces himself, he's outgoing, he cares enough to ask about you. And that's where Doug comes from. Doug, I've had you on here for about 30 minutes. I told you I'd keep you 30 minutes. And so any last words for advice for our listeners?
Just do what you want in life. Make yourself happy. We are here. Unfortunately, I lost my father-in-law recently, just after battling a long illness. And I got to tell you that he was the kind of guy that I learned patience from, I learned discipline from, I learned about relationships from. And I think that he was the kind of guy that led his life happy. He had family around him all the time. He smiled all the time. He was singing all the time. And if you're not happy in life, then it's not worth it. Life is too short to go through and be a sourpuss and to make other people around you miserable. So figure out what it's going to take to make you happy. You have an unlimited amount of do-overs in this life, and use as many as you can to get restarted and get refocused. And you can make yourself happy. It's completely up to you.
Yeah. And Doug, how do we get hold of you again? How can we get your sage advice, and how do we find your podcast?
Website is best. Head over to there. It's DougSandler.com. You'll have access to the free training program that we talked about. My podcast is there. My blog is there. Please subscribe to my blog. It comes out weekly. The podcast comes out 5 days a week. So we're everywhere as much as we can possibly be. So enjoy getting my message.
Cool. Hey, well, I'm looking at now. The listeners are going to be listening to this, but I can see you. So behind you got a motorcycle on the wall. Do you have a motorcycle?
I do. I'm the proud rider of a Harley. I have a Road Glide, which is one of the big ones. Have been riding Harleys for about almost the last 10 years now. I love them.
Cool. That's really cool. Now, you live where though? You live in Maryland?
I live in Maryland, so my bike's been undercover for the last 90 days. I'm ready for spring. It's only when's this episode airing? Do you know when it's coming out?
Probably Monday.
Oh, okay, so quickly. So, yeah, it's winter time where we are right now. So, we have about another 2 months before I probably can get a good clear day to get out there and ride.
You know, I live in Sacramento, and mine's been in mothballs. I got a Yamaha 1300 V-Star. And
nice.
The wife and I love riding it, but I just moved out here to California. So getting it all licensed, getting your new license stuff information all put together, it's like they want engine numbers. Like if you want to register your bike, they want the engine number. I go, there's no engine. I'm not going to pull my bike apart to do an engine number. So I got to figure out how to get past that one stipulation on that Yamaha in order to get it licensed out here. So we ride up the side roads illegally. I hope the police aren't listening, right?
Yeah, you probably do have a few policemen that listen to you. The happiness, you definitely
Yeah,
have.
yeah, that's it. But
That are
Doug
listening.
had a comment too, and that was really interesting. If you're looking for happiness, remember a lot of times finding your happiness depends upon what you listen to. Because I tell people all the time, you aren't going to change. No one changes except for three things, and that's the things you listen to, the things you read, and the people you associate with. So if
Yeah.
every day you're listening to a podcast about nice guys, or you're listening to a podcast about happiness, you're reading books about nice guys, those all impact you. And then surrounding yourself, not just on the podcast, but surrounding yourself daily with people who lift you up, that's what Doug and I encourage everybody to do every day. Right, Doug?
Absolutely. Hang out with nice people and you will become nice. It is pretty much that simple.
Okay, and I appreciate Doug being on today. This has been great, and I look forward to a lot more time with Doug as we grow through our own networks and getting to know each other better. You've been listening to the Happiness Agenda today. Please remember to pass this on to your friends, your relatives, and especially your grumpy neighbors. So I'm Steve Sapato. You can reach me at stevesapato.com. You can also reach me at my website for helping businesses grow, which is profitbuildercoaching.com. And we look forward to the next time we share with you on the Happiness Agenda. God bless.